I am playing the very first prototype stainless steel trumpet, and this is a Summit model that has stainless steel laser sintered parts. Now, you've probably heard me talking about stainless steel trumpets in previous videos, and maybe even for the last several years. I've talked about titanium and nylon and stainless steel and copper and aluminum, and of course brass and nickel. We normally make them from brass and nickel, and this trumpet still has mostly brass and nickel components. So it isn't a completely stainless steel trumpet, and that's obvious. You know, it's mostly brass. But we're moving into the realm of making it out of stainless, and there's a pretty good chance that almost every component will eventually become entirely stainless steel on this instrument. So that would be the Summit G4 series, which will come out later in the year, towards the end of 2024. But I really want you to hear what these horns sound like and give you some really in-depth information on how they sound. And with a spectrum analyzer, we can then map out the sounds and compare them to one that's all brass. And I have one that is all brass. This lead pipe bell configuration is a lead pipe 4 bell 3R. So we can set up the Muse trumpet to have a lead pipe 4 bell 3R, exactly the same, and compare the spectrum analysis of each one. So first off, let me tell you that the bracing is completely stainless steel. So it is laser sintered, and it's just all steel. There's nothing else put into these. Eventually I'll probably put some wood inlays in to make it nice, and there are 4 of them. So there's one on the bottom between the tuning slide and the bell, and there's one between the 3rd slide and the tuning slide receiver, the bottom side. And these 2 are essentially a special lightweight version of the original braces. So normally we'd have those as solid brass pieces that were CNC machined on the lathe or the milling machine. Usually these ones were machined on the lathe because it's a mill turn center. And they would weigh, I think the original weight of the brass 3rd slide was 8 grams, and this one is 2. I think it's 2 grams. So it's like almost a 75% difference. It's not exactly 2, but somewhere around there. But I think the difference was 70 or 71%. Now it's a lattice structure. So this lattice structure bracing is lighter, but it maintains the same efficiency. And when we talk about efficiency, we're really talking about how much energy we put into the instrument and how much sound we got out, and we're comparing the 2. So a higher efficiency horn requires less input for the same output. And we have ways of measuring that, and one of them is with the spectrum analysis. And essentially what we're trying to do here is make the instrument as light and as efficient and versatile as possible. Now the top braces are made out of stainless steel as well. Normally those would be brass, and they'd be CNC machined and then soldered in place. These ones are laser sintered, which means we took a powder bed and we sintered one layer of the bed, and then we added more powder and we sintered the next layer, and it melted the stainless steel powder to the previous layer. So we just keep building up. And that's known as laser sintering or SLM, or there are many other names for it, like selective laser melting, or DMLS, which is direct metal laser sintering. And all that terminology basically is describing almost the same thing. But essentially, we made these to have about 3+ times the surface coverage, which means the efficiency is going to go up from the brass version. And the weight has gone down considerably. I believe when I measured it, it was around 73% lighter than the brass version of these same braces. So we've taken 4 of the components and we've reduced the mass and the weight by a considerable amount. And if we do that to the tuning slide and the lead pipe and other components, even the valve casings, and even the pistons, we might be able to lighten the horn up more and improve efficiency. So this is what it sounds like. Let me play it again. And I do have the spectrum analyzer running right now. So you can see the whole time I've been talking, it is running it. Let's start it over and just measure a couple notes. So let me push stop here. We're going to play just a C. Let's take a look at the analysis. Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there, and we're going to look at this analysis for a second and get an idea of what kind of amplitude we have on each of the partials. So to clarify, when you're playing a low C, there's actually what's called the fundamental, which is a note that's an octave below what we hear. So the fundamental would be way down here, and there is a fair amount of fundamental on this, so that would be our B flat, which is down here. But most of the amplitude that we're really going to see in the beginning is the first partial, which is the note we heard. So we see a huge amplitude spike for the first partial. Now check out the partials after that. This is really telling of an instrument that's high efficiency. I'll say this. Typically when you measure a trumpet and you measure the first 5 partials, 1 or 2 or even several of them can be of fairly low amplitude, and sometimes the first partial, the one that we're really hearing the most, is actually a low amplitude. In this case, it's fairly strong. If we come up to the second partial, it's very strong. Third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and eighth are all extremely, they're right off the chart. I need to back off the mic to really pick up a little more fidelity here, but essentially what we're seeing is a massive amount of amplitude on all the partials. 1 through 8, 7, and 1 are the weakest, but they're not weak by any means. You can see it's very, very strong. Now, this may help you understand how stainless steel may or may not change the way the trumpet sounds. Essentially, unless we're putting stainless steel in the bell, it's probably not going to change the sound. However, it can improve the efficiency. Or if I design these braces so that they don't have as much coverage or they're not in ideal places, then they could actually reduce the efficiency compared to the previous brass version. So that could be a concern of ours, and we want to make sure to have the best results. So stainless steel isn't going to change the sound of the instrument. If I set up the Muse with the same lead pipe and bell, then we should get pretty much similar results, except for resonance and efficiency could change a little bit. Now, to do a fair comparison, I need to use the same mouthpiece and the same VGR insert. So that insert is going to help me match my impedance to the instrument. And as you could hear when I started playing the C, I found that perfect balance where I got the most resonance. So let's do it with the Muse trumpet. Okay, so now I have the Muse trumpet in my hands, and this one, even though the body's in silver, everything else it's still brass underneath. So this is a brass tuning slide. The tuning slide is slightly different. The efficiency level and resonance level of the Muse is in fact different than that prototype. And so we will probably pick up some of that and hear some of it. But the tapers of the lead pipe and the bell and the dimensions internally are all exactly the same as the prototype. And I'll also mention that I'm playing on Spectratone Blue, and I haven't changed anything there. And I did put the same insert into this receiver, and the insert I'm using today is a 344, which means 344 thousandths of an inch is the inside diameter of the beginning of the lead pipe. And this is a number 8, which means that it has lengthened the lead pipe essentially by 80 thousandths of an inch, and that gives us the impedance value that will probably match my setup the best. Here's the C again. Oh, gotta push record. All right, we'll stop that. We're going to go back and play it and check out the spectrum analysis. Let's go over to here. We're going to stop it. Okay, let me read it off to you. Hopefully it shows up on the video so you can see this. Wonder if I should turn up the brightness. So the fundamental is the same. The fundamental is a little less than what we had on the prototype. The first partial is also very strong, and I don't have an exact value, but just looking at it without changing any of the values or my scale, because everything's the same, it's almost the same as the previous reading. The second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and eighth partials are all almost off the charts. A couple of them are again. And number 7 is the weakest. It's not weak, but again, it's the weakest. And the first partial is the weakest. It is, you can tell, you could look at this, if you do this enough, you could look at this and say, oh, that was a lead pipe 4 Bell 3R with this mouthpiece. And if I change the mouthpiece for something else, we can start to see those variations. So essentially, it sounds the same as the prototype. These two horns, the Muse, even though the Muse is more resonant, the tone color is going to be pretty much the same. So what do I mean by resonance? Well, both of them are extremely resonant horns. That means that the energy inside the standing wave, inside the instrument, is interacting with the bell. And as the bell vibrates, it is interacting with it and essentially resonating the bell in such a way that the overall tone quality is improved. And that's that really vibrant, beautiful tone that we get when we lock in. And for example, if I do this again, let me delete this one, and I play, I'm going to play this time as resonant as possible, just using my ear without looking at the screen. And then I'm going to mismatch the impedance by changing the shape of my mouth so that we get the same pitch, but a non-resonant pitch where the bell is not interacting. We can hear the difference. So now I just went from a resonant sound to something that was not resonant. And let's look at the analysis of that. So here you can see we've got really nice spikes. And now we have a big mess. Let's just stop it there and look at that. Okay, so this is what, I mean, I'm laughing, but it's really not that funny when it happens to you, right? Like if you play a pitch and it's not what we call on center or it's not resonating, then this is what happens. And it'll sound like you have an air leak or something. But some people, unfortunately, have a mismatch in their impedance between the shape of their mouth and their mouthpiece and the diameters and the oral cavity volume, along with the lead pipe and the bell. All those impedance values have to match in order for the bell to really interact with the wave to get the optimum resonance. And when that happens, when you have a mismatch, you start to get things that look like this. Now you can see this is very different than what we just saw using just a nice impedance balance and creating resonance. Now you've got the fundamental, which actually there's probably more fundamental here. You've got the first partial, which is weaker. You've got the second partial, which is just a little blip. It almost doesn't even count. It's not enough for us really to hear. The third is the strongest out of everything. So if we didn't have that partial, we probably wouldn't really be hearing this note. The fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, they all vary quite a bit. But essentially, it looks like 2, 4, 6, and 8 are the weakest. And it's clearly a different sounding instrument. Now the same thing could happen if I just changed the bell, but if I get that maximum resonance, we're going to see a pattern appear. And one of the reasons the 3R bell is so popular is because, as you saw, it really does get what we say, all the overtones, at least all the overtones for the first 8. Beyond that, they might start to drop off, and we can see that. We can start to look higher than number 8 now and see what it looks like. Or we could even play a different pitch. Let's do the C in the staff. So let me clear this out. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, that time I added some vibrato at the end intentionally, so we could see what happens to the waveform as you add the vibrato. So let's play this. Okay, so now our fundamental is an octave higher, really. And now we have the first partial. Let's go back and do that again. The first partial is extremely strong. And then the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth are all extremely strong. Seventh, eighth, and ninth start to taper off. The bell 3R is made of red brass, which means it's actually a softer material. It has more copper in it than a yellow brass bell, and they tend to be designed to be softer. So ours are actually annealed to a, not really annealed, but they're half hardened. So they're somewhere between fully annealed and fully hard. And our yellow brass bells actually will resonate more and get more sparkle in the upper register because they interact with the wave easily in the upper register. So they will produce more of those tones. And that would be something like our number 1 bell. So this is the first of quite a few videos where I will be using a spectrum analysis tool. We have lots of different tools that we use here at Harrelson that we've used for decades. When I first started studying the brass acoustics physics side of the trumpet, I was in college in the music lab, or not the music lab, in the physics lab, working with scientists from Yamaha. And if you guys don't know that story, you can go into my blog or my other videos and learn about that. But essentially, I started learning how to measure the sounds and how to measure the energy loss, which we'll cover in other videos, and understand how to improve the efficiency and improve resonance. And the results of my findings and the work I've done over the last 30 some years are very different than what most people characterize our work as. A lot of people think that we're looking for a really heavy horn. This is not a real heavy horn. This is the Muse, which is, these big braces are actually hollowed out. They're not really heavy. So this is a horn you can literally just play all day if you want to, as long as you have the strength to hold, a few pounds. But essentially, our goal is not to make heavy horns. It never has been. Our whole goal is to make a horn, one, match your impedance value, so it's versatile. And we take the VGR system very seriously. I designed that specifically to achieve these goals, as well as the modular mouthpiece. So no matter what the outside of our mouthpiece looks like, the body part, the internals are all modular, and they allow us to fine-tune all the tapers and volumes as they really can be measured in a cross-section linearly. And when we do that, we can impedance match your oral cavity and your techniques to the different range and tonal qualities you're trying to create on your trumpet. So that's what we do here. We fit people specifically to different trumpets. And you don't have to have that done. We have trumpets you can get right off the shelf that will do it for you. If you're a middle-of-the-road player, you just won't be able to fine-tune, adjust the tone quality as much as the players that come in and have it done custom, or the ones that get a Muse with modular components. So all of that to say, essentially, this kind of work is really what Harrelson Trumpets was founded in. And we use something we call standing wave efficiency. It's interesting to note that a lot of different people out there have said you can't have standing wave efficiency. It's not something that can happen because a standing wave can't have efficiency. And those words technically I put together to describe what a lot of you would call response or the dynamics of the horn. And trumpet players don't really have the best words to describe what's happening, but standing wave efficiency is essentially maintaining as much of the energy in the standing wave, the wave that's bouncing back and forth between the inside of your mouth and somewhere in the bell or just outside of it. We want that actual energy to be preserved so that it can achieve maximum resonance in the bell. So we're essentially trying to make the bell resonate as much as possible. And we do that by preventing the wave from exerting force that could, on the wall, on the tubing wall, anywhere within the instrument, that could set it into motion. And it may sound like science fiction to some of you, but for the thousands of Harrelson artists and trumpet players out there, it's reality. And we have many of the very best trumpet players in the world performing every day on our equipment. They trust us to help them achieve the best results. And that's why we're here today. And I want to teach you how all this works. And I have actually done this in the past in videos, but some of them were lower resolution, and we didn't have the full Muse system when a lot of those were made. So this will be kind of a remake, a better version of those videos that we put out in the past. So let me finish up by just playing. I'm going to play a little bit on the Muse, and then I'll play a little bit on the prototype Summit with the stainless steel components, and see if you can recognize the difference in the tonal quality. There is some, but essentially most of it comes down to where the bell is anchored on this instrument, and that's going to affect some of the resonance. But the lead pipe and bells are exactly the same. The VGR insert and the mouthpiece components are the same, and I'm using the same player, me, and I'm going to play as much as I can consistently. So I'll play a little bit, and I'm going to push record on this. That way you can see what's happening on the screen while I do this. Now let's move on to the prototype Summit. Okay, so I can feel a difference, and I actually can hear some difference, but the difference is essentially because it was braced differently, and it's a very, very fine difference. You can now, of course, rewind and go back in the video and see what happened on the screen, and I can too. I don't have to show you, but essentially the tone quality is very similar. It's just that the Muse is more resonant. I'll do one more time, and this time I'm just going to play an arpeggio. I'll say one more thing. Because the Muse was designed, most recently, and it's designed to be much easier to play. It is. To be fair, in this contest, the Muse is a lot easier to play than the Summit. Also, to be fair, the Summit is easier to play than almost every other horn out there. So we're kind of just getting these little tiny gains, and it's probably obvious, at least to me, or if you were in this room, that it's easier for me to play the Muse than it is the Summit, and neither one is difficult to play. All right, so I want to thank you for joining me today. This very first prototype is mine. I'm going to keep it and play it, and I have another one that I'll be showing off that is the very first H series prototype, and I probably won't make very many of those because the H series was retired indefinitely. And you can see behind me there are some more trumpets. We'll have other videos that feature some of these. And I have the second stainless steel Summit prototype that I'll be covering, as well as the GS15, which means garage sale number 15. It's the 15th horn we built with really some part or component or components that are mismatched or didn't pass inspection. And they still play really well, but the GS15 does also utilize some stainless steel parts. I believe 2 braces, and we'll get to check that out as well. And if you're interested in purchasing one of the prototypes, 2 of the 4 I just mentioned will be for sale. I probably won't put them online or anywhere else. So if you're interested in a great deal on a very nice prototype as we move into stainless steel components, then give me a call or email me, and or visit us online, yharrelson.com. My number is 303-657-2747. And if you want to see more videos like this, make sure to push subscribe. The last thing I want to do, and I'm going to start doing this in most of my videos, is I want to share with you a couple things that have happened recently, and also every one of my videos I now want to start sharing some of the feedback from our customers. Because Jen was saying to me the other day, hey, we've got thousands and thousands of positive reviews, but most of them aren't on Google and they aren't on our website, because most of the people just write to us or call us and we have those. So we're going to start sharing those as well. I will be covering more trumpet news and events in my YouTube videos, and that's mainly because I'm shifting some of my focus towards Rumors and Dreams, which is both a trumpet series, but also it is a blog and a podcast. So it will be something that's featured on my YouTube channel, the Rumors and Dreams podcast, and you will find it on Spotify soon and all the other services that offer podcasts. So I will be following more and more of the latest events and people and happenings in the trumpet world. And I have two pieces of news that I want to cover today that I think are really important and should hit home to most of us, whether you know these people or not. So today is June 28th, 2024, and I would really like to say that I'm saddened to hear of these two great trumpet players who have passed. One of them was Gary Grant, who I believe passed away yesterday. And Gary, if you don't know him, I pulled up his Wikipedia page, and I was a little bit saddened by that too, which I'll read here in a second. But Gary has probably been the most inspirational trumpet player for me, or one of the top three in my entire life, and I've never met him. But I've known his name and I've known his recordings because he has been one of the top studio LA artists for decades. I think for probably like 40 some years, maybe 50. And he played on so many of the theme songs and movie soundtracks and even commercials that you've heard, that you all have heard him many times. And for me, I've spent more time transcribing that kind of stuff than really jazz solos or orchestral stuff or anything else, because it's that pop music that would always get my students excited, and it was fun to play in clinics and master classes. And so we've all heard him. Now I'm going to read a little bit about Gary. According to Wikipedia, it says Gary Grant was an American trumpet player, composer, and producer, and session musician who has played on hundreds of commercial recordings. Well, that's very true. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was thousands. I'm sure it probably was thousands. Gary has collaborated with a variety of artists such as Barbra Streisand, Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Tony Braxton, Brian McKnight, Frank Sinatra, Natalie Cole, Earth, Wind & Fire, Go West, Take Six, Elton John, and Aerosmith. Okay, so that's where I almost feel like there's a disservice in this, this entry for Gary on Wikipedia. I wish I had the whole list, and I'm sure that somebody probably has a fairly complete list. If you find the complete list, I'd be happy to read it in one of my videos, even if it takes a long time, because it's important for us to all hear how much this person has impacted us. But he was just an amazing player. Now, I never knew Gary. I would see his Facebook posts. I would see him on Facebook doing this or that, and he usually was not posting things of himself. If he posted anything, it was like maybe one of his cars, because he had some cool cars. But a lot of other people would say, oh, I met Gary, or I played with him, or we did this awesome session, and you would see him in photos and mentioned all the time. He was a pretty humble guy, but also I feel like the entire community on the West Coast looked up to him as well. I wish I could have met him. So Gary has passed, and that's a reminder for all of us to just make the most of every day. And the next one I want to mention is Charlie Geyer. Now, Charlie I did not know. I've heard him several times. I did not know him personally. And I'll say this, Charlie and Barbara Butler were instrumental in, I know, thousands of people's lives. And they were very close to hundreds of great trumpet players. Some of them were my own students, and some of them are my colleagues, and some of them are even past employees who took lessons with Charlie. So Charlie did pass, I believe, this month. So I was at the ITG conference earlier in the month, and he could not be there to accept an award that I'm sure he was very much deserving. And Barbara couldn't be there either, his wife. And I was saddened to hear that he wasn't doing well. And then, of course, some other people let me know that he wasn't doing well. And he did pass on June 11th. I'm going to read what I found about Charlie. So he was born in 1944, and he was 79 years old when he passed away. So that's great. He lived a long life. It says that he received his bachelor's degree in music at Northwestern as a student of Vincent Chickowitz. If you don't know who that is, if you're a young person who hasn't heard of Chickowitz, or you're not familiar with all the Chicago symphony players that most of us orchestral players grew up worshiping and learning from, then you might want to look that up. It says that he played with the Chicago Lyric Opera Orchestra. He joined the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, and he served with the CSO for I think 12 years. And it says a lot about places that he has performed and that he has impacted people's lives. But I know that he taught at Northwestern, and he did tour, and he was a soloist with orchestras all around the world. And I think the great thing about both Charlie and Gary is that they really were those people that would share and build relationships and help other musicians grow. So I'm saddened to see that these two trumpet greats have passed. And another reminder that we should all really go out there and take the time to learn from those who have so much to offer, especially before their time is done. And I think it's really important for all of us to connect and just share as much as we can, because we are a community. We're a brother and sisterhood of musicians who really want to make music and hopefully share a beautiful art. The last thing I want to do today is share a piece of feedback. Jen put these in no particular order, although I can see this one is from June 25th of this year. She is putting together a binder of thousands of Harrelson feedback comments, and I'll read them. Most likely I'll read them exactly as they are, and if I have any commentary I'll add it. But I just want you guys to hear these things, because we're not the company that will go sign on big artists and have them endorse us and tell everyone they should buy a Harrelson trumpet. And there are reasons we don't do that. And there are some videos out there explaining it in a blog entry. And I'll probably put more of that out there. But the main reason we don't do that is because we find that it doesn't give you a true, honest understanding of what we do at Harrelson. And we don't want you to buy a horn just because someone famous plays it. All right. So this one comes from, I'll just say first name, it's William. He says, "This honestly is the best mouthpiece I've tried. It works for me. I bought it secondhand from someone on Facebook. I've literally tried everyone: Bach, Monette, Rudy Muck, Schilke, Lasky, Lotus, Marcinkiewicz, GR, Yamaha, Parduba, Legends, Bob Reeves, Padovani, All Brass, you name it, I've tried it." And I'll just interject that actually you have tried a lot. There are more. You didn't try Warburton, but awesome. Like, you've tried a lot of stuff. I'll continue. And this Harrelson B8 is amazing. From my understanding, it's your 10.5C, correct? I'm going to interject here. Not really. The B8 was designed with a Monette rim, so you can give some of that credit to Monette, who actually took that rim design from Olds. So if anyone is owed credit on the shape of the rim, then it's probably someone at Olds that we may not ever identify. Back to the feedback. I want another one just like it, or whatever your Spectratone equivalent is. Thanks for your time. Okay, so that's the whole review or comment, and I think that person is now in the process of buying a Spectratone with that rim. I'll say this, he really liked that rim and the setup and all the stuff that was on it. We can always reproduce that in the 5mm Spectratone system, so just know that's possible. And thank you all for watching this video and seeing a little bit about doing a spectrum analysis. Now, when I do these not for the camera, there's a lot more involved. Of course, they all go into a spreadsheet, and we kind of catalog everything, and that's a lot more work. But for you guys to share on YouTube, this hopefully gives you some insight into how we can look at the performance of an instrument and see some of the resonance patterns, see what the partials look like, and also we can test the efficiency as well, which would be done with a little more fidelity than what you saw today, but and a lot more testing, but the efficiency side of it is a lot of fun as well. So I'll see you next time.